Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life YouTube channel, and welcome to this horror TV show episode review video. So obviously we've been taking a look at The Haunting of Hill House from 2018, which I have on DVD here. So yeah, believe it or not, we have reached the last two episodes of this 10 episode series. So let's just go ahead and get into it with episode 9 entitled Screaming Meemies and episode 10, the final episode, entitled Silence Lay Steadily. So we'll start, of course, with episode 9, Screaming Meemies. Now this is an episode that completely takes place in the past. Like most of these episodes up till now have shifted between the past, 1992, and the present, which is 2018. But this episode is all in the past when they're younger. So in the past, Olivia begins having disturbing paranormal experiences in the house. She sees a vision of the corpses of adult Nell and Luke and encounters the ghost of Poppy Hill, who tells her that the world outside will devour her children and she needs to keep them safe. Disoriented and scared, Olivia and Hugh decide she should take a break and travel to her sister Janet's house. However, Olivia, now unstable and influenced by the house, never goes, and the family's last night at the mansion starts to unfold. A delusional Olivia takes Nell, Luke, and Abigail, who was sleeping over, for a tea party in the Red Room, which is now open. Hugh realizes Olivia has poisoned the tea with rat poison to kill the kids, believing this is the only way to keep them safe from the world. So yeah, this is definitely an episode that features Olivia, just like the first 5 episodes featured the children. This episode definitely features the mom, the matriarch of the family, Olivia Crane, played, of course, by Carla Gugino. And kind of what leading up to that night, what happens. Now we don't get the full night, but it's definitely the beginning of the night as far as what's happening and what happens to Olivia, which we kind of know from the first 8 episodes, but we didn't actually get to see. So obviously want to highlight Carla Gugino as Olivia Crane. This is kind of her episode here, and she does an outstanding job. And like I said, this is an episode that takes place, all of it completely in the past, to kind of get us up to the final episode, which the present timeline sort of got up to with the end of episode 8. This gets to pass to that same point here. Yeah, it's a really solid episode, Screaming Meemies, and you wonder about that title, Screaming Meemies. It's basically another name for a dream in a lot of ways, and that's kind of what I like about this episode is the way the house, and especially Poppy Hill, who's kind of the evil presence in the house, is able to manipulate and kind of, I don't want to say fool, but like confuse Olivia as far as the love for her children and what she should do in order to keep them safe from the world, because the world is a very scary place, is basically what she's hearing in this episode. And of course she gets visions, as it says, of her of adult Nell and Luke, who's passed away. She basically gets their corpses in this episode, which just all kind of feeds into the idea of trying to keep them safe and things like that. So I really think the episode does a really good job of having the house, because Olivia starts out to show pretty normal and pretty with it for the most part. But the house really works on her. I mean, over time, and especially the last few episodes here, it really works on her to really confuse her, and as she says, wanting her kids to wake up, which means dying. Basically, that's what waking up is, and being in a dream is being alive. So it's kind of the opposite of what you might think, where a dream is more like being dead and being alive is being awake. It's just a really interesting dynamic there at play, and how it all comes about. So yeah, big fan of Screaming Meemies, episode 9. And then of course we have episode 10, the final episode, entitled Silence Lay Steadily. So this episode, it starts out with Stephen and Hugh finding Luke unconscious in the Red Room. Stephen, Theo, and Shirley all become locked inside with Luke and all experience revelatory nightmares about their lives as the house tries to kill them. All the siblings are saved by Nell's ghost, who of course also resides in the house now. They awaken to find Luke dying. Nell's ghost explains that the Red Room is the stomach of the house and can disguise itself as different rooms to each person to calm them while it digests them, which is another very interesting aspect to this show. So we finally get to see what the Red Room is. Like throughout all this series here, starting with episode 1, you've had the Red Room with this red door, and they've tried to find keys and they've used different ways of trying to get into it. But it's basically a room that only opens if the house wants it to open, is about what it amounts to. But in this episode, we find out that they've all been in the Red Room before. They just never knew it, because it's always been something else to each of them. So that's really cool. The siblings apologize for not saving Nell, and she assures them that they all loved each other. Olivia's ghost keeps the siblings trapped, not wanting them to leave. Hugh convinces her to open the door, telling her he will make her a promise. She frees them, and Shirley and Theo drive Luke to the hospital. Hugh and Stephen stay behind, and the aftermath of Olivia's death is revealed, including the fact that the Dudleys were Abigail's parents, which I think I don't want to say it's obvious, but I think just kind of watching the show through, when this little girl shows up and you realize that Abigail is real, which is another really awesome thing the show does, is they make it so Abigail is there. There's a real Abigail and there's the ghost Abigail, and they both appear in the house throughout certain episodes of this show. So you're not really quite sure exactly if Abigail is real, that like an imaginary friend that Luke has, which you're kind of led to believe that she is. But then in the last episode, meaning episode 9, we realize that she was real. And she did spend the night, that last night, with Luke and Nell, and had tea with them as well as Olivia. Where was I going with this? But yeah, anyway, because you have the parents, which is the Dudleys, who of course never come to the house after dark, Olivia basically sneaks away. And they don't know it, of course, but it is revealed that they're her parents. So, so Stephen finally gets to see what he's always wanted to see, which is what happened. He keeps asking Hugh what happened the night that he pulled all the kids out of there and then went back for Olivia. And of course, Olivia was found dead. And we find that that's all revealed. The Red Room, as I said, is revealed. What happened that night is revealed. Hugh says goodbye to Stephen, entering the Red Room to stay forever with Olivia and Nell, which was his promise, that he basically would sacrifice himself and to stay with Olivia if she'd let the kids go. And Stephen finally acknowledges the presence of the house's ghost, because of course everybody's been waiting for the whole series for Stephen to finally admit that ghosts existed. They were the reason for all of this, and it wasn't mental illness. It's just I think they ended the show about as well as they could have. I really do. I think it's a fantastic ending to this series. Everything is explained. There's probably still some questions that people would have, because this show's a lot deeper than just the surface level kind of things going on. There's a lot of trauma issues. There's just a lot of layers to this whole story, and that's part of the brilliance of the show, frankly. But I think this final episode, the way it starts out is really cool, because you start out in Stephen's dream. Like, Stephen's already in the Red Room. We don't know it yet, of course, until a few minutes later, but he's already in the Red Room, and the house is basically messing with him. And then the house messes with Nell, or not with Nell. It messes with Luke and Shirley and Theo as well. They each have dreams. And the dreams are very interesting because they have to do with their significant others from earlier in the show. So like with Stephen, it's his separated wife. I forget her name. With Luke, it's the gal that basically took his money and took off. I forget her name. With Theo, it's the gal that she met at the dance club and has been trying to keep a distance from her. And then with Shirley, Shirley has this extramarital affair she had about 6 years earlier. And this guy that she had it with keeps showing up. We actually see that in a few episodes, I think starting with Two Storms. in episode 6, and then I think it was in episode 2, which was kind of Shirley's episode as well, Open Casket. So there was something going on there, and then of course that's she's confronted with that. So they're all sort of confronted with this, their biggest problems, their biggest. I think the show also does a really cool thing, and I'll get more into this in the final video. This isn't the final video of this series. I'm going to have a final video to talk about the entire series, my thoughts about it, the pros, the cons, if I can come up with any, all those types of things. But basically, this last episode starts in. It starts with Steven's dream, and his wife is pregnant, but not all is what it appears. And he talks about, I am home, and then he says, I don't even remember how I got out of the house. Well, as soon as he says that, we kind of know that he's probably not out of the house. It was giving me 1408 vibes with John Cusack. If you know that movie written by Stephen King, you know. If you know, you know. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. This is just a very good ending episode, man. I mean, a lot of times in these series, there's a lot of good episodes throughout, but then it doesn't necessarily end exactly the way we wanted it to. I don't really know that they could have ended this series any better than they did. Now, interestingly enough, Mike Flanagan actually had a different ending in mind that was a little bit more true to the book, that was definitely darker, that he decided to not go with. And I'll get more into that. I'll explain that more in my final video here when I talk about the overview and my overall thoughts of the entire series. But yeah, this is a really solid episode. There's some, we see a lot of ghosts and apparitions in this episode. There's definitely some horror here. There's a lot of emotion here. It's a very emotional episode. It's the entire family coming together from different timelines, different generations. It just kind of all comes together in a very satisfying and fulfilling way for anybody that's watched and enjoyed this series up to this point. So that's episode 10, Silence Lay Steadily. As I said, I'm going to get into a lot more of the nuts and bolts and some of the deeper issues and themes that are at play throughout this entire series in my final video for this, which will drop in a couple of days. But with all that being said, that's my review for episodes 9 and 10. Comment down below your thoughts on these episodes. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would really help me out for the future content and my channel going forward. But with all that being said, we made it through all 10 episodes of this season, and now we're going to take a look at the entire series as I see it in my last video. So with all that being said, thank you for watching. Hope you're enjoying, and as always, stay scared. Bye.